Catch this and other podcasts of Super Talk 1270 online at supertalk1270.com.
Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Let's head back to the studio and join the conversation.
Welcome back to the Tech Ranch, everybody. Jim Walsh, Mandy Zabel in the studio, and on the phone is Ken Sanders from the Volt Report. Ken, how you doing today?
Doing great, thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful as well. I'm waiting just waiting in anticipation for the Hyperloop. We're going to skip over that right now because if there's an announcement, we want to break in with that. But so let's get on to the other things that you have to talk about today.
Cool. The Kirobo robot. Have you heard about that?
I have actually. When I was at CES, I actually danced with one, believe it or not.
What?
And I think there might be a video on YouTube somewhere, but I'm not really sure, and I'm not confessing to that. But anyway, tell me a little bit about the robot.
The robot I think the whole idea of it got started really cool because there was this Kobe robot project in Japan where people were given the instructions to assemble this 13-inch tall little robot at about $1,700 in United States money for all the parts and pieces. But
okay.
It was a cool little piece of technology. And so the first ever Japanese astronaut's going to be taking command of the International Space Station. So Commander Wakata is going up there, and the Japanese version of NASA, JAXA, had assembled one of these Kobe robots with voice control commands and facial recognition and kind of personalized the robot a little bit to communicate with Commander Wakata while he's on board the International Space Station.
Okay.
And they launched it last week, and it boarded the space station on Friday.
So how's the robot doing in space?
I haven't got too much information back from how it's doing up there right now.
Okay.
I know they did some zero-gravity testing with it to make sure that all the kinks were worked out before they flew it up there.
So the robot that I was dancing with 8 months ago is now floating around in space. That's absolutely amazing.
Doing the old two-step with the robot.
I know you found that amazing. I know it was not a two-step, by the way, but yeah, it was
electric slide, maybe.
Yeah, it was pretty funny actually. They had the Kobe robots were they are activated by sound, of course, and they were actually dancing around on this stage, and somebody dared me. I won't even get into all that, but it was fun. But all right, so what else you got for us today, kid?
There was also a pretty sweet article that Millennium Mile posted up there about a subway / bus concept that's being created in China, whereas you know how subways are underground?
Right.
And they're incredibly expensive to install, obviously. There's this concept to actually take the subway above ground, only combine it sort of like with a railway up there, sort of like how the trains work, only it would be wide enough to facilitate about 1,200 to 1,700 people, and it travels above traffic, if that makes sense. It's
like an elevated train.
Yeah, and actually,
like in New York, they have the L.
Well, what he's talking about, Jim, actually, there's actually a photo, and I don't know if you can see this, Mandy, but it's like, I don't know, what would you call those things down the side there? But they're like elevated rails, I guess you could say, and cars can actually go underneath the bus, and I'm assuming the bus just moves along these rails, correct?
Yeah, and it's powered with solar energy.
Very interesting. So you're not even taking up any additional roadway. I would think it would be kind of freaky, though, if you're sitting at a stoplight and this bus comes rolling over the top of you.
Right, yeah, that's what we're talking about over here. Like, what happens? And we were saying that the margin for, like, a possible incident or accident there would be, like, I would imagine, like, 3 seconds maybe, because this thing's going to, like, fly over you. It's not exactly just going to be driving over you.
Yep. I can see where they have some work to do with this, but it is an interesting concept. And for everybody that's listening, it's at thevoltreport.com. There's actually a drawing of this bus. It is very interesting, though, Ken, isn't it?
I think it's absolutely fabulous.
And I can see in suburban areas where this could be a very, very big deal, because it could be something that you're just integrating it into an infrastructure that's already there.
Yeah, that's what the simplicity of the installation I believe is the biggest priority or objective that they're trying to get there.
Sure.
Is to make it easier for traffic to get by and around the buses, make it easier for commuters to get around while not having to do all the trouble of digging a huge tunnel underground.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very, very cool. So let's keep going. I know we're always up against the clock with you here, so what else you got for us today?
I would like to make mention of Momentum Magazine's fashion editor. It's a bicycling magazine. Their fashion editor was recently parking her bike outside her office job, and she got a ticket there. And she had messaged the people at the building, and they kind of fired back to her that it was sort of an eyesore to have bikes parked all day outside their Regal building out there. And so that's made a little bit of a stir in the bicycling community on the internet, but that brought my attention to look up the electric bikes that we had discussed before.
Sure, the e-bike, yes.
Right, the e-bike market is actually doubling in the United States right now, and it's supposed to continue that kind of trend of picking up more sales and getting more units on the street throughout the United States. So there's a huge infrastructure of bicycling lanes that are going to be coming out in the United States and a lot of urban cities to kind of make the commutes easier for people.
Well, I've noticed, in my travels that there are more and more cities that are putting bike lanes in and that type of thing. And I'm assuming that's because there are just more and more people using bikes.
Exactly. The number is increasing as the price goes up as well for gas.
Sure.
I mean, in most places, they're encouraging people to use bicycles.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm even thinking in our own downtown areas where we're at in rural North Dakota, it's been an emphasis of ours to even put bike racks up so people have a place to put their bikes. I mean, these are inexpensive ways for people to get around. And, again, not having to add any additional infrastructure costs anything. So unbelievable that you get a ticket for this.
Yeah, believe it or not, they're finding a way to throw some tickets to the bicycle.
Sure. Okay, what else you got for us today?
Let's see here. Also, we did an article about e-tickets, smartphone methods of payments, where you can go to a Starbucks and use your phone or your tablet to pay for your bill, and how they're also going to be applying that sort of technology to public transportation, like the buses and the trains.
So are you talking about so that everybody understands kind of what we're talking about for paying your coffee, like the Square app or using PayPal or whatever? These are devices that you can use now to actually pay for your Mandy, do you actually have this?
Yes, I have the Starbucks one.
So how does it work? When you go to Starbucks...
So if I'm in a hurry,
okay.
I can I'm constantly signed in, and they just scan it.
That's it?
That's it. And it's hooked up to my Visa account.
Okay, so you're not having to charge,
nope.
Like buy $10 or $50 like a gift card. It just hooks
You can
up
do it that way, too.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have it connected to my credit card.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
I got a question for Mandy.
Yeah.
When you've scanned that information, have they asked you if you would like maybe a regular item that you purchased there? Because they do have the history of your purchases, right?
Yeah, the places that I've gone haven't, but it is an option. Like if I get the same kind of coffee over and over again, they could do that. Yep. And then I just get an e-receipt, too, so I don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Very cool. So they're going to take this technology now, Ken, and then move it into the transportation arena. Tell me a little bit more about that.
What they're doing with that, and Siemens has a big hand in this. They've been working on technology for the past 10 years to actually simplify public transportation, whereas you might be taking a bus, you might be using a bike share program, and you might be in the train all at the same time, so that you could actually use the same payment method for that, and it's universal in that sense. And also, they're also working on a system called the Bebo System, which is acronym for Be In, Be Out, and it basically works through radio waves. You have an RFID card, and it has a magnetized gateway on the parts of the train or the buses. So when you walk in, your information is scanned instantly, and when you walk out, your information is registered, and you don't have to take your card out. You don't got take your phone out. You just walk on and off, and it kind of interprets whether you're taking a one-way ride or a two-way ride, or if you need an all-day pass.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what RFID is, so everybody understands what we're talking about here?
Those are the radio frequency ID chips. They have a little, or not chips, but cards. They have a chip in there, and that pretty much holds your information. It can connect to your debit card. It can connect to your credit card, your PayPal. So,
yeah, and they just have a very short frequency. I mean, you can't see the signal coming from them, except for maybe in a 10 or 15 foot area. So that's what makes them kind of secure. There were credit cards here not too long ago that had them in them as well, and people were figuring out ways to steal your credit card information because of RFIDs. So I'm not totally sold on the technology because of that, Ken. I think there's a lot of opportunity for fraud with these things.
Right, which I imagine is a kink that they're going to work out before it's fully implemented.
Exactly. Well, Ken, we really appreciate you being on the show again. Mandy Zabel, Principal Minokin, thank you. Jim, thank you as well. Great show, everybody. And for everybody else listening, next week, same bat time, same bat channel.
You've been listening to The Tech Ranch, live and local on Super Talk 1270. Keep ahead of the trends.
Tune in every Monday morning at 11 a.m. for The Tech Ranch.
Exclusively here on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
Podcasts of this and other shows are now available on supertalk1270.com.